It's getting really crazy out here with all the laws passing and white lists being approved. Make sure that you're becoming a USARC member if you can, and if not, support USARC awareness on your platforms. Thank you, and we're stronger together, guys. West Coast, man, you know where it's at. Best place to relax and kick back underneath the palm trees. Talk about reptiles and spit facts. From BP to GTP, Emeralds to Ackies, the city by the sea where we rock the crease khakis. I don't need no AI intro because I've been at the style. Come kick it on the West Coast and talk about reptiles. Reptiles. About reptiles. Style. Come kick it on the West Coast and talk about reptiles. What up, everyone? Your boy Adrian right here, West Coast Reptiles. Episode number 10. We're doing a solo episode. Gonna catch up on some things that are going on over here. Hope everyone's having a good day, man. Thanks for tuning into the podcast. West Coast Wednesdays. Your boy Adrian right here, again on the West Coast, bringing you a podcast every other Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific time. And if you're looking for a podcast with some trustworthy advice from a new keeper perspective, transparency, and you want to learn from my experiences, and be sure to share and like this comment and subscribe. If you guys are here to learn, you guys are at the right place. I love just sharing my experiences and educating on people on things that I learn, and maybe you'll learn something too along the way. Appreciate it. Thanks for tapping in, everyone. Salute. Happy Wednesday. Almost through the week, man. So just doing a little solo episode, like I said, just go over what's going on over here. And before I get into too much, our thoughts and prayers are with Vin Russo over there on the East Coast. Big OG in the game, a person that I really look up to for keeping their collection as professional as they could be, as peers of a bloodline as they can be. And huge respect to Vin Russo for what he's done. You know, what he's done will never be forgotten, and I'm sure he's going to get back on track. And he has a GoFundMe. It's all over Instagram right now. If you guys go to Vin Russo's page, Cutting Edge Herp on Instagram, you'll be able to find his GoFundMe. And if you guys can help support Vin Russo in any way, I'm sure he'd really appreciate it, and his family. So thoughts and prayers with Vin Russo, man. So, you know, we're coming to the end of July here and summer, and you know, things are popping off for sure. I got some ball pythons still cooking in the incubator, and a couple leopard geckos still cooking. Other than that, I haven't seen many signs from any other females. I got a female that looked like she ovulated a ball python and has gone off food. So I got maybe two that might be ovulating here. But we'll just get straight into it. Of a subject I wanted to touch on tonight is the green tree python gravid female that I had. Ended up passing away a couple days ago from being egg bound, and come to find out she had 20 eggs inside of her that were never passed. So she was egg bound and passed away. So let's just kind of start from a little bit further back. We'll take it back a little bit, and maybe we'll just recap the whole thing. So I acquired this animal via Craigslist, and she was about 4 years old, maybe 4.5 years old, pushing 5. And I had her for a while. I had her for maybe about a year now, maybe a year or 10 months. And she was doing good ever since I got her. She was a great feeder. I upgraded her enclosure as soon as I got her. She was in a 18 by 18 by 24 or 30, and I put her in I think a 30 by 30 by 24, something like that. And she was really liking that enclosure upgrade. I was feeding her medium ASF. And she was smashing food. I'd feed her maybe once every 3 weeks, let's say. And she was doing good. She was doing good. I tried. So what I did was I had a male green tree python, Uterensis type. His name's San Isidro. I had San Isidro in an enclosure. He was in a Exoterra glass enclosure. I got him off of Craigslist as well. Nido tested both of them. Both of them tested clean. And I had an Exoterra enclosure for San Isidro. That's what came with the animal when I acquired it, and had him in there for a little bit. And when I upgraded the female to her enclosure, her bigger enclosure, put her in there. And then what I did was I put San Isidro in the female's old enclosure. So did a deep cleaning on that and put the male into her old enclosure, which is a PVC enclosure. And I'm thinking that kind of triggered him into going into breeding mode. I noticed shortly after I upgraded him into that enclosure, he was really interested. At first, he didn't show interest in the female, and then when he was in her enclosure for a little bit, I think that kind of stimulated him to go into breeding mode. And I noticed he was kind of cruising and refusing. He was cruising a lot and wasn't really interested in food. I feel like he sensed that the female was around. And so I ended up, after quite some time, I started getting some locks. I acquired her probably around late summer last year, maybe around August or so, maybe September. And I started pairing them up in March, around March or so. So I let them go for about 6 months, and they're both adult green tree pythons. Chill for 6 months, get a little acclimated, started getting some food in them, just checking out their isolation, little quarantine, you could say, and ended up pairing him over there to her, and he pretty much locked up right away in that new enclosure, and being stimulated maybe by the female scent from her old enclosure that he was living in. They locked up right away, and then I got maybe 3 or 4 locks in total. I would get a lock, and then when he would separate, I went to feed. I would try to feed them. I think he ate one of the times that I separated them, and she would eat. After separation, she would eat, so I'd give her time to digest, and kept repairing them maybe about once a month or so. I'd get a lock from them. Like I said, I got about 3 or 4 locks, and then something happened where I just decided to stop pairing them. Maybe she went off food, because she did go off food at some point. And that's when I knew that something was going down. So I have my notes right here. Let me take a look at my notes right here and see if I can make sense out of it. So I got a lock. Got a lock on April 7th and April 28th. She refused on May 9th. So that's pretty short. Oh, actually, I think I fed her. I might have fed her. Okay. Oh, no. Okay. I fed her a medium ASF on April 15th. I got a lock on April 7th. I fed her April 15th. And then I got another lock on April 28th. So that was 2 weeks after I fed her. I got another lock. And then she refused on May 9th, which was about maybe a little less than 2 weeks after the last lock. Actually, I got another lock on May 25th, it says. I guess I just locked up again. And then I got an ovulation on June 7th. So the last lock, it was about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks from the last lock to the ovulation. Then I got a prelay shed on July 4th. The 4th of July, I got a prelay shed. So I got the ovulation on June 7th. Just less than a month later, I got the prelay shed or post-ovulation shed. And then she went into the nest box around July 13th and started having contractions. What up, what up? Thanks for tapping in, 1776. Appreciate you. Cheers, my guy. Just doing a little recap over here of what's going on the West Coast and sharing some experiences that I've had recently. So I got the contraction. She went into the nest box. And then shortly after that, she coiled up underneath the towel. I put a hand towel under there. And she started having contractions. So one mistake I made right here, I made a lot of mistakes along the way, honestly. One of the mistakes right here is I just had it dry inside of the nest box. I wasn't really sure that you needed it humid in there. So what I did is I sprayed, I reached out to some people probably after it was too late already, because what she had done, she went into the nest box and then coiled up underneath the towel and started having contractions. And I was just going to let it ride out from there. I was expecting her to lay the eggs any day. Kind of reached out to the people about the contractions. I've never really noticed that before, but I guess the green tree pythons, I'm not sure if all snakes do that, but the green tree pythons have contractions when they're about to lay. And so she was doing that for a couple of days, 3 days. She was having contractions, which might be a little longer than usual. This is all from my first time standpoint. I don't know, but from what I experienced, maybe that went on a little too long. Like I said, she ended up being egg bound and passed away. So the contractions, maybe she was trying to, maybe the contractions start and maybe she's trying to push the eggs out like right then and there. And she just couldn't do it. And I think there's a number of factors. So we'll touch on the factors of what I would do differently going forward after I just go through the whole summary of how it went down and just what happened. So she started having contractions, and then that was for about 4 or 5 days. The contractions kind of settled down. She was coiled still underneath the towel. And then I noticed she had kind of changed positions underneath the towel. She was kind of a more flat coil. She wasn't like as coiled so high anymore. She was more of a flat coil. So I kind of peeked under there, and I noticed some swelling. On her. Let me see if I could just do. Let me just try to do like a quick thing on Instagram. I'll email the picture to myself, and I'll be able to bring that up shortly here. But I noticed some swelling like around the egg area. Like I could see the eggs inside of her, and they were looking pretty swollen. So that was kind of a red flag to me. Like she had changed positions. She wasn't coiled as much some more. But also at the same time, this is my first green tree python attempt at breeding. So I didn't know what I was looking for. I was, sharing the pictures with some people, and, I should have been a little more descriptive on what I was seeing on my end, because it's hard to see from a picture. It's easy to just say, "Oh yeah, looks like something, looks like she's gonna lay any day." So I knew something was off when she switched positions, and by then it was probably already too late. That should have been a red flag. And then maybe a day or two later, she kind of came out from underneath the towel and was a little more spread out. Like not looking too hot, honestly. She became kind of lethargic toward the end. And I'm going to share a picture right here of what I'm talking about when I peek underneath the towel. So just bear with me while I get that through to the screen. And so I've been checking her, at night, checking for eggs, nothing. Wake up, checking for eggs, nothing. She was in the nest box for about 2 days total. What happened is she went from contractions for the first 4 days or so to being egg bound shortly after that, and a problem arising. So it happened really quick. It happened like in a matter of 6 days. And then I just waited it out. What I did, I sent a picture of what I'm about to show on the screen right here. I sent a picture of that. I'm going to show it on the screen right here. Give me 1 second, guys. I'll pull that up. But I sent a picture of this, what I saw here on in my observation, and a good buddy of mine, Alex Warren, who I really look up to, noticed that the nest box looked a little dry. So he's like, "Oh, that towel should be damp." And I'm like, "Oh, it's completely dry right now." Like I didn't, he's so I sprayed the inside of the nest box and made sure that the towel was damp, and thinking that that might help induce her to lay. And so she pretty much eventually came out from underneath the towel. Let me see. I'm trying to. Okay, there's an issue. Um, I'm trying to pull up the image, but it's giving me an issue here. Yeah. I don't think I'm going to be able to. I don't think I'm going to be able to share it, but anyway, it was a picture of her underneath the towel. It's really not much to see, and I could see her belly, and the eggs were like a pretty swollen. Like there was a pretty substantial lump in her belly where the eggs were. There was multiple lumps in the bellies, like something that I hadn't really seen before. Almost like a gas was building up, or just there was some swelling. It looked pretty unusual to me. I didn't really know what I was looking for, and I think that those might be signs that a female might be egg bound, because I haven't seen that really. I've got a buddy who's on like day 57 post ovulation, and his green tree just looks all uniform. There's not like, you know, substantial lumps in the belly. So she came out from underneath the towel, and I was pretty concerned at that point, but still just letting her do her thing. I'm a pretty patient person. I was just optimistic, and I took it for granted for sure. I think that these animals, there's a reason why these animals are so hard to breed. So she came out from underneath the towel, and she moved a couple positions a few times, and then she got in one position, and I could see her head right there. She's pretty much fully out from underneath the towel. She was above the towel at this point, and I woke up and I saw her there, and I was just checking to see if she was breathing. I'm sure I woke up in the morning. I wake up early for work, and I studied, and then went to work, and then came back from work, and then as soon as I came back from work, I checked on her, and she was in the same spot that I left in the morning, and I immediately knew that something was up, and she had passed away. So I just did an emergency C-section on her just to see if I could try to salvage anything. And she had when I opened her up and I found, what was inside. I didn't really see anything blocking her cloaca area. There was like no urates or, bowels right there. There was nothing really blocking her. And she had 20 eggs inside of her, 20 pretty big eggs. And I didn't, it's hard for me to tell what was going on, because I feel like a lot of time had passed by since that problem occurred. I don't know if it was just from her passing away, maybe like shortly after I left in the morning from the time I got back home, or it was something that had already happened like 4 days ago and I was like 4 or 5 days too late. So the eggs were pretty much like adhered to the oviducts. So the oviducts are like, it's hard for me to describe because I don't know what they look like naturally or what they should look like. But what they looked like when I opened her up was like a sausage tube, and the sausage tube had just fully had the egg inside of it, and there was not a lot of room for the eggs to pass through. They did slide around in the oviduct pretty easy, but the oviducts are pretty much like, if you think of like a sausage, it has that casing around it, and that's what the oviducts are like. And the eggs are right there, and they squeeze through that like tube, and so the oviducts is like a sausage, and each egg, it goes. There's an egg. Say there's two eggs here, and the oviduct kind of collapses, and then it goes to the other egg, and it collapses, and so I would imagine trying to like palpate those out. They just kind of slide through the oviducts, and yeah. So she had both of her oviducts were full of eggs, and the eggs were no good. I reached out to a couple people just trying to be optimistic, see if I could save the eggs, and that was the picture in that thumbnail. I'll bring it up again right here if I can. See if I could bring up that thumbnail one more time. Yeah, so that picture comes up. Not sure where the other, but here is the. There's the 20 eggs right there. So those were all already passed away. I tried incubating them just to see if any would make it, but they were all non-viable. I did some research, and pretty much it's almost impossible for an egg-bound female eggs to be hatched successfully. I haven't found very many stories of hatching an egg-bound female's eggs. Try to bring up that other picture I was talking about, since that picture came up. Yeah, for some reason, it doesn't want to bring that picture up. Oh, here we go. All right, so here is the picture, and not sure if I can zoom in here. Not sure if not. I don't think you guys can see that, but I don't even know if you can see my mouse pointer. But over here on the left-hand side, near her spine area, I saw there was a lot of swelling right there, and then right onto the right of it, there was swelling, and you could see swelling and just her rib cage. She looked extremely dehydrated and just wasn't looking so good. Definitely not a great first attempt at breeding and getting the female to lay properly. So the female passed away from being egg bound, and then I tried to save as many eggs as I could, and they all passed away. They all were there was 0 slugs. They were all fertile. I could see the embryo inside with veins in the egg, but the eggs were all discolored. They were already succumbed to the bacteria had taken over the eggs, and I even opened up a couple eggs. I saw the little embryo inside was like a little baby worm. You could see the eggs on it. It was a little baby tree on little tiny thing, and very sad, very sad. You guys know how passionate I am about all my animals, especially warriors. So this was a tough loss, just to kind of say another subject. This what people say is true. These animals are rare and low supply for a reason. They are not. They're not so easy to reproduce as everyone says. They're not like ball pythons. You can't take them for granted. And yeah, they are a whole nother ball game when it comes to it. There's a lot of people that do have success, and I wish I got a better understanding of the whole ovulation process. It happens so quick, and so I feel like I just kind of took it for granted, honestly. So it really took me back. That female that I lost was my only adult female, And after losing her, it really opened up my eyes, about how precious an adult female can really be. Adult female green tree pythons. I mean, you go on Morph Market, there's almost like no females available. There's a lot of males, but there's not many females. And yeah, it's tough. It's a tough game. It's not as easy as you think. So with that being said, there's a lot of things I would do differently going forward. Just to start, I just add another water bowl into the enclosure. I have one big water bowl. I'd put another arboreal water bowl up there. Just in general, I think you want multiple water bowls in the enclosure for these arboreal animals. And I would have missed a lot more. I'm going to start misting a lot more. Just general misting. Just spray the animal. There's some. I just hear like some people are against misting. Some people are for misting. Some people just mist the enclosure. They don't mist the animal. I'm just going to start misting the animals. They like to drink off their scales. So yeah, gonna step up the hydration game for sure. Hey, what up, RO? Thanks for tapping in, bro. Um, just going over how I had a egg-bound female that had passed away. So this is a picture of her being egg-bound right here. I noticed some swelling. So I had an egg-bound female that passed away, and she had 20 eggs inside of her, and all the eggs also passed away. So it was a tough loss. So what I'm doing right here is I'm just sharing my experience, what happened, and signs that I saw. She had contractions, and then she switched to a position. That's when I looked and I noticed some swelling, and then she came out from underneath the towel and pretty much died after that. So, there's a lot of things I would do differently, and we'll just like go back to the very beginning. She had just passed away 2 days ago. She just passed away 2 days ago, and I did an emergency C-section, and all the eggs were gone already. So, yeah, appreciate you tapping in, Elias. Really means a lot to me. Just going over a recap right here, mostly talking about how I lost my green tree python clutch and just what I would do differently going forward. You know, um, I just like, it's tough to talk about this shit. It's embarrassing, but hey, at least I got that far. I can learn from it, and maybe somebody else can learn from it too. You know, uh, it could be worse, but hey, at least we got that far, and now we can learn from it. So, like, let's talk about what I learned and what I would do differently. Like I said, hydration, just hydration, hydration, hydration. Now going forward, I'm gonna start soaking animals regularly. I'm gonna start misting regularly, misting the actual animal. I'm gonna start misting the actual animals. I'm gonna add multiple water bowls in the enclosures. That's just husbandry practice. That's just basic husbandry. So now, when I go to side and you get an ovulation, finally you get an ovulation. I just heard Bill Stiegel mention on the podcast last night. He's had a female 60 days in ovulation, and he tries to get 2 to 3 soaks after he sees an ovulation. He soaks the female at least 2 to 3 times. And I never soaked my female once after an ovulation. I remember, people kind of mentioning soaking after ovulations. I never did that once. I never soaked her once. I would spray the enclosure, make sure she has fresh water. But never really did I see her drink the water. And I think that was one of my first mistakes for sure, was the poor hydration. So I would definitely, going forward, after I see an ovulation, try to get 2 to 3 soaks in, spread them apart. Maybe, I said in the beginning of the episode of the timeline, I got everything down here on the notes from when I saw the last lock to ovulation. So the ovulation was in June 7th, and then the pre-lay shed was July 4th. So that was a month. So if you divide that, about a week and a half. Yeah. Yeah, people don't talk about shit. Yeah, I mean, I'm just here for education, man. I'm a rookie. I know nothing, and I'm just sharing what I learned, and I now I know a little something. It's pretty tough. I feel like there's quite a bit of gatekeeping and stuff. You get little bits here and there, and then you got to put them all together for yourself. And so right now, that's what I'm trying to do, is kind of try to put it together for everyone. And so, like I said, after an ovulation, Bill Stiegel mentioned that he tries to get 2 to 3 soaks to a female after she ovulates. And so, like I said, I never soaked her once. And yeah, I would soak her 2 to 3 times at least after the ovulation. And then now she's going into the nest box. Make sure your nest box is nice and damp. My nest box was bone dry. I mean, the enclosure had ambient humidity, which should go into the nest box. But what I was told is you need your nest box to be humid and damp. And I would throw some sphagnum moss and vermiculite, like Chuck Bogle was saying last night on MJ's podcast. Throw some sphagnum moss and vermiculite on the bottom, and maybe a towel, maybe just a lot of sphagnum moss. Maybe you don't need a towel. I kind of like the towel method. I was trying to go the sterile route, even though sphagnum moss and vermiculite is great substrate to use. I don't know if I was using vermiculite and sphagnum moss, I don't know if I would use a towel as well. I think I would just put a lot of sphagnum moss in there, and I think that's what I'm going to try in the future. And make sure that that's like nice and damp and cool. And then the green tree will go into the nest box after the prelay shed. So let's kind of back it up a little bit. When after the prelay shed, you remove the top perch. You'll see you're starting to go check out the nest box, and that's a good opportunity to start removing the perches. You remove the top perch, and then you remove the bottom perch, or you remove all your perches at some point, because you don't want the female going up there and dropping the eggs off of the perch. So around like the post ovulation shed or so, that's when you remove the perch or perches. You remove one, and maybe the next day remove the other one, something like that. And then she's going to go into the nest box, and you want it damp and humid inside the nest box. Maybe even throw like a tiny water bowl in there, if so, or maybe it's tough. But then she's going to start having contractions, and shortly after that should be when she lays. It's like I said, I've got a buddy who's on day 57 post ovulation. So my female was around day 40, 46, maybe day 50 when she finally passed away. But it went from her having contractions and looking coiled and normal for about 4 days, and 5 days later is when I showed that picture. This was she was having contractions, and then 5 days later she started looking like this. She wasn't coiled as high. She was laying flat and looking like this, and I noticed the swelling there. So I think here it was already a red flag, and it was too late. I think something was going on here. She was dehydrated. I think she was dehydrated. Maybe she was overweight. Maybe she didn't have enough muscle tone to push the eggs out. There's a whole lot of factors here. Maybe the egg box was too dry. The nest box was too dry for her, and there wasn't enough humidity for her to get flexible, and so I think it's a pretty short time from the contractions to there. I don't think being egg bound is a common thing. I think you can avoid it, like I said, with just proper hydration and humidity and proper husbandry. You shouldn't really come to that point where you need to check for an egg bound female. It happens here and there, but I don't think it should be something that happens regularly as long as you're following these steps from these professionals that I've mentioned, the soaking after an ovulation. Because one thing that, just to put it into a little more depth, is that when the female is ovulating, she never leaves that heat. She never wants to go anywhere. She never wants to drink any water. She doesn't want to eat. She doesn't want to leave that heat. So you need to force her to drink water, pretty much, is what I understand, and to avoid any issues during the pregnancy and making sure that she's properly hydrated. So like, kind of bouncing back to that subject, but now she's in the egg box, she's having contractions. Shortly after the contractions, if not during the contractions, I think is when she should start laying, and then she should stay coiled the whole time. And if she does step out of the coil, some red flags that I saw was she was getting lethargic and just not good body language. She was I could see her like rib cage pretty well, and the swelling. So lethargic, swelling, dehydrated, not coiled up. Those are all like red flags that like make you think, okay, like something's going down. Should I take the animal to the vet? Should I try to help palpate? Should I do something? Should I soak her again? Probably soak her first, and just try to step in there and help the animal out. If you just let it go, it's just going to be a total loss. Like what happened to me, it was a total loss, and it really sets you back. So this is why I'm touching on this subject. I pretty much broke it down. So, make sure your animal's husbandry is just a lot of humidity, a lot of hydration, and not too much humidity. You want good ventilation, avoid any issues with too much humidity. Hydration, hydration, hydration. Soak the animals regularly, even if they're not in ovulation. Just soak your animals. Make sure you're misting them and spraying them. Make sure you're doing fresh water changes. Make sure you have multiple water bowls. After you get an ovulation, soak them multiple times. Make sure your nest box has the proper humidity and substrate. It's damp. It's not soaking wet, but it's damp. And then keep an eye on the female when she remove the perches. Keep an eye on the female. Remove the perches after the prelay shed. I had the prelay shed on July 4th, and she went on the nest box around July 11th or 12th. So about a week later, after the prelay shed, she started wanting to lay. It was around like day 46, 47 post ovulation. Like I said, I've got a buddy that's on day 57. Hope that goes well. His female looks nice and hydrated. And yeah, that's pretty much it with the green tree python subject. I feel like I touched a lot on it already. Just watch out for obesity. Don't try to overfeed the animals. Just because they get nice and big and thick doesn't mean that they're necessarily healthy. I think hydration is more important than anything. So, going forward, I'm just going to start soaking a lot of my animals and spraying a lot of my animals, just spraying the animals directly. I've got some ball python eggs in the incubator that are looking good still. So I'm kind of getting off of the green tree subject now. I've got 4 more green trees. I've got 2 males and 2 females. The females are not up to size yet. Probably got 2 or 3 more years till those are up to size. But yeah, I mean, it really set me back. So I lost that adult female. Now I got to wait 2 or 3 more years until 2 or 3 more years till I got another shot at a clutch, man. But it felt so good just getting that far with the clutch. What up, Santos? Appreciate you tapping in, bro. Just sharing a story of how I lost my female green tree due to egg binding and 20 eggs also dead inside of the female. So yeah, maybe it was the clutch size was so big for a first time female. That's what, gave her issues. Maybe the eggs were pretty big and that's what gave her issues. You know, like I said, I think it was dehydration, uh, improper husbandry during the ovulation period. And yeah, but other than the green tree, most of the stuff is going good. I randomly had an adult ball python prolapse literally the same day that my green tree python died. An adult ball python prolapsed. And, that was the first, my first prolapse I ever had to deal with. So it kind of comes in waves. So what I did with her is I took her out of her tub. I rinsed off her prolapse and just cleaned it up with a Q-tip, put on some latex gloves, and just try to, remove any debris that I saw on the prolapse, rinse it off really good. And then I put some sugar on the prolapse and let that sit for a little bit to act as it's like a decontractant or whatever to try to shrink up that and get it to hold back in a little better. So I put her in a small tub, some paper towels, and put some sugar on the prolapse and waited for a little bit. And then I got a Q-tip with some polysporin or an antibiotic cream, and I I kind of cleaned it out a little, cleaned her vent out a little bit, and then I was able to push back the prolapse. It wasn't such a big prolapse. It wasn't so gnarly. It was just a small prolapse and kind of a medium prolapse. It wasn't small, it wasn't large, but it was a medium prolapse. And so I got a Q-tip with some, antibiotic ointment and kind of swabbed around the vent area, and then got a clean Q-tip with some more antibiotic on there and was able to push it in through the sides of the vent. You don't want to push like through the rectum or through the vent. You want to push it through from the sides of the vent. So I was just working left and right, you know, left and right, and got that prolapse in there. And you want to push the prolapse back a little further than you think. And it kind of naturally went back a little further than, you don't want it flush with the vent. You want it back just a little further. And and then I did a final swab around the vent again with some more antibiotic. And then I put a band aid on the vent. The vent pretty much shut naturally right there. Then I put a band aid on the vent, and then I put some medical tape around the band aid. And I've had her in the tub, and I put her in a small tub just on paper towels, completely dry. A small tub, so she can't move around too much. And what you want is her to get control of that rectal muscle again. So I've had her in there for about a day and a half so far. I heard 24 hours is recommended. I just went a little longer. I'm gonna take her out of there tonight, and I'm gonna undo the bandage. And you don't want the bandage on there for too long because they need to pass stuff. So I'm gonna put her back in her FP70 tub on paper towels, no substrate, just dry paper towels with the water bowl, and remove the bandage, and then go from there. So you don't feed them for at least 2 weeks. And just telltale sign is if you have your next bowel movement and they don't prolapse again, hopefully. And if they do, then you just repeat the steps. And like I heard that you just keep the band-aid on for a little longer or something like that. And that's just going for a little longer with the band-aid the first time. And so yeah, that happened the same day that my green tree python passed away. So it was a long day. That day was a long day for me. That was a couple days ago. It was pretty demoralizing, and it was tough. It was a tough day. shit was kind of coming in waves, but it kind of checked me. It's like, hey man, you know what? Like, you got to step your shit up, bro. Like, you know, uh, you can't let it get you down, man. You got to do the best you can, bro. You got to fucking work harder, bro. You know, you get knocked down. It's all about how you come back up, man. You got to come back up hard, and it just gives me motivation, man. Motivation to keep trying. I got that far with the green tree pythons, and now, I feel like next time I'll be able to get further for sure. So, you know, it's all growing pains, and it just incentivizes me more. It's gonna be make it more worth it. I thought it was coming so easy. Definitely took it for granted, and it's not as easy as people say or what you think. Or don't underestimate it, because there's just a lot of steps. There's a lot of extra steps to getting eggs successfully from a green tree python. Anyone can breed them, but actually getting the eggs and hatching them, that's a whole different story. There are some people who are successful the first time or first, a few times. So shout out to those people. But I feel like you really got to get kicked in the nuts first before or anything, and hopefully, me getting kicked in the nuts is what it takes for someone else to have success their first time. If you guys are just tapping in and you guys are missing some of what I've been saying, don't worry. Tomorrow, whenever, go ahead and watch the replay. I broke it all down. But there's a lot of information that I think a lot of new people need to hear, especially new chondro breeders, of how to prevent a female from becoming egg bound. So I touched on a lot of that subject today. And maybe that should have been the title of this video: how to prevent egg binding in a female. I mean, that's how I would prevent it. And there's going to be some other people that maybe have more things to say, and or maybe even a green tree python breeding guide. You could say for rookies, for dummies, for idiots. I don't know. Um, but yeah, it all happened so quick. Really, I couldn't think. I didn't have much experience doing it before. Ball pythons are pretty easy. You just, you get your locks, you get your ovulation, then they lay the clutch, and you're good to go. You don't have to soak them. I've never heard of soaking a ball python after an ovulation. Maybe I might try that just to prevent a ball python from being egg bound. And yeah, no, I appreciate all you guys for tapping in, man. Big Will, I see you, bro. I appreciate all you guys for your condolences, man. There's definitely a lot worse, but yeah, it was tough, man. It was a tough loss, man. Losing 20 eggs, a 20 egg clutch. I was anticipating. I wanted to see if I would get some red and yellow, or it would be all yellow. These are undocumented animals, and was really looking forward to it, man. I was really hopeful. I thought I had it in the bag, but obviously not, bro. Something went wrong. It was too late, man. It was tough. It was tough. I lost the female. Now I have no adult females, you know. So these animals really need a lot of care and attention, especially when you're going to go to breeding them. They say the best way to kill a green tree python is by breeding them. And look what happened. It's true. It's true. It doesn't really hit you until it actually happens to you, you know. But yeah, not trying to be so much of a downer, man. You know, I look at it as a positive thing that I could come on here and share it with you guys and do a little solo episode. And, I pushed back a ball python prolapse. That was a good learning experience. Hopefully that goes well for the ball python. I really like that female. Um, and yeah, man, aside from that, I got a couple more leopard gecko eggs in the incubator. I got a couple holdbacks that I'm working with that I really like. So one of the holdbacks is right here on the thumbnail. That's this leopard gecko I decided to hold back. It just looked a little more whacked out on the pattern than the rest of them. Not really expecting too much, but be fun to see what happens with that. And we said with the balls, when we think they are gravid. Notice that we spray a little more often than regular, but that's just a small observation from this season. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm definitely going to spray a lot more going forward. Um, well, yeah, other than that, I got a female emerald tree boa. I'm trying to get her up to size after seeing MJ's emerald females in person. I don't think she's up to size. His females are very big and large, and this female still looks on the medium side. So maybe another year or so, we'll see till I try to pair her up. We'll see how it goes. We'll see around fall how she's looking. And yeah, other than that, everything else is going pretty good over here. I got a lot of animals are on food right now. I don't have many that are off food. Like the only animals that are off food, I got one ball python that just laid a clutch and she's still off food. So I'm going to try to do something to trigger her to go back on food. I'm going to try to soak her again and then change out her substrate completely. And that will probably kick her back onto food. I've got a couple more ball pythons that are kind of off food that might be ovulating. I did see some possible ovulations right there. But aside from that, everything is on food. I had a couple smaller 800-gram females, kind of hitting that 1,000-gram wall. They're like 900,000 grams. And they went off food for a little bit, but now they're both eating food. So, I just fed them 2 hoppers last night or 2 smalls. When they're eating, I just boom. You want another one? All right, here you go. Let's when you're in the mood, like let's go. Let's hit it. So I got that. I just fed my male San Isidro, the male that sired my egg-bound clutch, the green tree python. I fed him a small last night. I just dropped it in there. Usually I'll just drop it in there and let it run around and he'll grab it. This time he wasn't taking it, so I just tried it one more time off the tongs, and boom, he just took it right off the tongs. That was kind of interesting. I kind of learning, the behaviors. Usually I'll just drop something in there, he'll just snag it, but now he seems to be more of a tong feeder. So things switch up. I picked up a couple tubs, like a couple like Sterilite tubs, and like kind of deep for soaking. Some soaking tubs. I have a couple tubs I used to soak, but they're not that deep. So like now that I'm gonna go into more soaking my animals more regularly, I got a couple deeper tubs, so it's just easier to put the animal in there and them not try to escape so easily, and just have them soak in there for a little bit. So I got a couple soaking tubs, and the rodent production's going great. I've got a ton of rodents right now, a ton of feeders. That's not an issue. Everyone else is shedding good and eating good. Just trying to think of some more subjects right here that I could touch on. Got some fresh cocoa. Just mixed up a batch of cocoa, broke down a brick, broke down a block cocoa, and thinking I might start pairing up some more ball pythons pretty soon. I've got a female that laid a clutch for me last season, and she's doing good. A ball python, she's doing really good. She looks like she's getting ready to go again this season. I was pairing her up around Halloween time, and that's kind of when she was starting to go. Like I'd say from around Halloween to January is when I was pairing her, and then she went for me. Shortly after that, maybe in early spring, and that clutch crashed in the incubator. I think the egg box was too humid or something like that, or something was just off in the incubator. Poor ventilation in the egg box. I don't know. I'm a big ventilation guy, honestly. I'm not I'm not really for the press and seal. This is just my rookie opinion. I'm not a big like press and seal guy. You know, it's like people aren't using Crescent Seal for green tree pythons, why would you use it for ball pythons? It just, it doesn't really make sense. And like I said, my first clutch crashed. This clutch is going strong. It's pretty much the same amount of time that the first clutch crashed. This clutch is still going strong. No mold whatsoever. No issues. Um, the eggs look great, and the first clutch, the eggs look great when I first harvested them from the female. They had perfect vein structure. They had good embryos. They candled great. So there wasn't a reason that they should have crashed in my head, other than that there was just too much humidity. So this time going forward with my egg boxes, I'm doing air holes and no press and seal. And I run a wet chamber incubator, so it's not like that humidity is going to leach out into the incubator. It's just you know some more ambient humidity, and yeah, just keeping it going, man. Keeping the positive waves going. Just looking forward to just trying to focus on the females growing up. Focus on the eggs in the incubator. Just move forward. Just don't dwell on the past too much. Learn from it. Talk about it. Get more advice. Get a mentor. If you're gonna breed green tree pythons, definitely get a mentor. I'm gonna start reaching out to someone who I have in mind, who I just want to be like my go-to mentor. Because people are busy. Some people, they don't have time to mentor you. They can't give you your full attention, and it's hard. Everyone's got their own things going on, man. It's a really busy hobby that we are in, and yeah, just looking forward to the future, man. Just keeping it going. Um, yeah, keeping it going. Just staying positive right here. It's real easy to get down. I see how some people can get down and shit. And when you're, maybe when you're only working with one species, or you're just here for money, I could see, it's really not what it's all cracked out to be. But when you're just here for the animals, you love doing it. This is your passion. This is what drives you. I feel like it just pushes you more. It pushes you more to be more successful and do better, for the animals and for your breeding projects. And yeah, I'm just trying to think of some things that I got going on over here that I could touch on. Just making sure there's proper humidity in all the enclosures and all the tubs. Got the diamond pythons are still rocking and rolling. They're doing great. Been feeding them a lot. They're it was crazy with the male, and he's a lot smaller than the female because he's still stuck on rat pinkies. And the female, I'm able to just feed her more frequently, and the male. And so I fed him. I just bumped it up. Instead of feeding him one rat pinky this time, I just bumped it up to two rat pinkies. These rat pinky, I try to go for like the bigger rat pinkies, like kind of in between fuzzy rat pinkies. So boom, I fed him two, um, right there back to back, and man, you can see the swelling in his belly for sure. But then like 5 days later, it was all gone. Like he had almost fully digested those rat pinkies in like 5 days. So it was like nothing to him. I was kind of surprised to see that. Just changed his paper towels right now. They're doing pretty good. Really excited about the diamond pythons in the future with those. And yeah, like I say, you just got to keep focusing on what you got. You can't dwell on the past. You just got to all right, man, like I'm going to these are my priority right here, and I'm going to make sure these are looking good right now. And you just got to stay focused, man. You got to stay focused and stay busy. And yeah, got got a lot of positive things here. I'm gonna be having a lot of female ball pythons that are gonna be up to breeding age. Within the end of this season and next season, the beginning of next season. Um, I'm gonna have some. I'm gonna have some numbers on the female, so it's gonna be fun to get some different pairings going and get some action from that. I've got a couple animals I still want to get shed tested here. I'm thinking about collecting some more sheds from some animals. It's going to shed test the stranger for het sunset because you hear a lot about stranger being tied to sunset. So I do have. I'm anticipating a stranger clutch hatching here in a few weeks, and if that male proved out at sunset, then I test the clutch or something like that. Even though I'm not really too big into sunset or into the sunset project, but it could change my thinking a little bit, and maybe I'll hold some back, or it could just increase the value of that clutch considerably. So I'll test the sire first, and then go from there. And yeah, man, just keeping it rocking and rolling. Just staying focused. Just keeping everything growing up, and then what can breed. Make sure you're maximizing what can be breeding, and you're making the most out of that. And just stay on top of your husbandry, stay on top of your rodents, and you shouldn't go wrong, man. Just huge props to everyone out there, everyone having success. You know, huge props to all you guys. There's a lot of success out there, and it's good to see everyone so successful. You know, uh, congratulations to MJ and all of his success, man. He deserves all of that, bro. He's been working so hard. He's been through a lot, and I mean, he's been through way more than a lot of us could imagine. And I definitely feel him. I feel him, man. So when you finally hit that moment of success, it's like, man, I just want to talk my shit now, dude. It's like I paid my dues, and here I am, man. And yeah, so big props to him. Big props to everyone else out there, man. The whole, all the trappers, the V unit, the suspects, the Whiz Tang, mofos. Shout out to everyone, bro. We all united in this shit, man. And we're all in it together, bro. And if it wasn't here for the community, man, I wouldn't know who to talk to about my experiences. I wouldn't know who to talk to for help. And everyone is so helpful nowadays, man, and I'm just trying to give that back, man. And just keep the ball rolling. Keep the ball rolling. Just keep looking forward, keep upgrading those enclosures, bumping those animals up in sizes and tubs. Maybe just bump it all up, man. Bump it up. We gotta keep that fucking shit going, bro. You know what the fuck it is, man. We did it, bro. We came this far. We can't stop now, bro. Can't stop now. This shit makes me want to go harder, dude. I came that far just to say, you know, just to say what happened to me recently is a feather in my cap, a notch in my belt for sure, in my opinion. Because look at now I can come on here, be transparent with you guys, like I said I've always been, and just bounce back, bro. It's not all rainbows and sunshine, but when the sun does shine, man, it shines bright. It shines bright, and this hobby is very rewarding. This industry, this hobby. So yeah, guys, just make sure you're practicing good husbandry. Sanitizing in between animals. You're using multiple feeding tongs and sterilizing the tongs, and keep some shit on hand too. Keep some like peroxide on hand. Keep some band-aids on hand. Keep some medical tape on hand. Keep Q-tips on hand. Keep some antibiotic ointment on hand. Keep stuff in your toolkit. Keep some foot powder on hand. Keep a lot of egg boxes on hand. Keep egg trays on hand. Keep vermiculite on hand. Keep sphagnum moss on hand. Keep cocoa on hand. Keep everything on hand. Make sure you got everything, because when you need it, it's there. It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So make sure you guys just keep your stuff on hand. Making sure your heat tape is all secured properly. Making sure your thermostats are on point. Making sure everything's plugged in and working. And maybe you don't need all that heat. Right now I've removed a little bit of heat from some things. It's summertime over here, so I removed a little bit of some things. And Logan's just tapping in. I'm sharing a lot of stuff that's going on over here, including my green tree python became egg bound and passed away with a 20 egg clutch inside of her. Appreciate you tapping in, Logan. Be happy to talk to you about it more, bro. But go ahead and catch the replay if you guys haven't. And yeah, man, just gonna end it on that note, man. Just make sure you guys are keeping everything on hand, keeping on top of your stuff, bro. This is a little safety meeting. A safety meeting for all of us. A lot of crazy shit's going down. I had some tough losses recently. Vin Russo has had a tremendous loss recently. So it's not all fun and games, dude. This is a serious business, man. I work day in and day out with these animals. Make sure all your shit's on point. This is your big homie Adrian right here. Just making sure that we're doing the best we can. This is from homie to homie standpoint. All you guys are my homies. I don't have any fucking enemies. Any fucking shit I got, I squash that shit and we move forward, bro. I don't want any fucking bad blood. We're all homies, bro. So I'm just having a little homie conversation. Whatever you guys can take from it, great. Just a little reality check, bro, and wake up call. And yeah, man, sharing my experiences. If anyone's tapping in late, bro, make sure you guys are catching the replay. I've been at it for about an hour, almost 15 minutes now. And whatever you guys could do to help each other, bro, let's just start, let's keep just helping each other. Don't be afraid to ask questions. If you're going to start breeding a species, ball pythons are pretty easy to breed, right? There's a lot of species that are easy to breed. I don't take the ball pythons for granted. I think I've been very successful with the ball pythons recently, and I don't want to take that for granted. Don't want to get too overzealous with that. I want to make sure that I'm staying successful. I don't want to just be, oh yeah, man, I could do this in my sleep. This shit is easy, because everything has a challenge at some point with the ball pythons, even with the ball pythons. But if you're going to get into a new species, make sure you just understand the whole process from ovulation to what you do after the ovulation. Because I just got some content together, and hey guys, I got an ovulation. What do I do now? Okay, it's been 40 days. What do I do now? Make sure you got an understanding of the whole process. I broke it down earlier in the video of pretty much what was going down and what I thought I would do differently. So if you guys are going to start getting into another species, like say you're a ball python person, or if you've had a little success with ball pythons, or you've had a little success with some other species, just don't think that species is the same. Reach out to a professional who's been doing it for 20, 30 years and really ask like specific questions, because it's hard for them to give you everything all at once. Like I said, you'll get little pieces here and there, and it's up to you to piece them all together. And that's what I kind of try to do in this episode is put little bits and pieces. It's a kind of a brief summary, but it's an overall what you want to do, start to finish, with a kind of adult size green tree python to the moment of getting the eggs. And make sure you have that egg box set up. Make sure it looks nice. Get a sim container. Just do the best you can. Pretty much gonna end it on that. Podcast in 2 weeks. Feel free to reach out, send me a DM, let me know in the comments or whatever. If anyone wants to reach out and anyone wants to jump on the podcast, talk about what they got going on, any experiences they got, feel free, man. Message me, West Coast Reptiles, on Instagram. If anyone wants to share this out, if anyone knows any like new green tree breeders that are expecting, maybe this would be a good video for them, just so they could get an understanding. It's only an hour long, and I pretty much touched on the first of it in the first 30 minutes. So, yeah, I really appreciate anyone who taps in, catches the replay. It's all good, bro. Bosses take losses, man. You know what it is. It's your boy Adrian, and we're gonna call it an episode right here. So I'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Peace out. West Coast, man, you know where it's at. Best place to relax and kick back underneath the palm trees. Talk about reptiles and spit facts. From BP to GTP, emeralds to Ackies, the city by the sea where we rock the creased khakis. I don't need no AI intro because I've been at the style. Come kick it on the West Coast and talk about reptiles. About reptiles. Style. Come kick it on the West Coast and talk about reptiles.